Make sure to check out Iron Mike, My Life Behind the Bench, as you bring in today's guest. It is Mike Keenan. What's going on, Mike? Congratulations. How are you?
I'm very well. Yourselves, you guys are probably celebrating today after a big victory last night.
Yeah, we're feeling good. Right. And Mike, we're going to get to that game, but you're never short on opinion. Tell us through the process, what inspired you to write this book?
It began a few years ago, actually, the beginning of my career in 1984. Jay Greenberg was the beat writer in Philadelphia. And one day he said, if you ever write a book, I want to work with you. We move forward now to pre-COVID and then into COVID. And unfortunately, Jay started the project and passed away of all things West Nile disease. Scott Morrison was doing the editing, and I turned to Scott, another Hall of Fame writer. You guys are familiar with Scott, and said, could you write the book? And he said, of course I can. He was, Jay used to work for Scott in the Sun, I believe it was the Sun. And then, so we had a pause for about 6 months. It took another year and a half to write it. I was reluctant even to do the project to begin with, but they kept poking the bear. That would be me. And then Scott brought it to life. Great writing. And Mark Messier did a very gracious forward in the book as well.
Nice. So, Mike, when you're doing a project like that, obviously you got to go back throughout. I mean, you've coached for a long time. There's a lot of memories, a lot of stories. Are you picking and choosing what you put in and what you leave out, or is it kind of a no holds barred type of book? What was the mindset during it?
Well, it's an interesting question. If you sit back and try to recall, and it begins as my life as a young boy, everything. We were just at a 30th reunion with the New York Rangers, and Steve Larmer, who played for me in Chicago as well as New York, he started telling this story, and then he turned to me and says, is that in the book? I said, Steve, I forgot all about it. So you can't capture it all, but Scott would try to trigger memories as he would ask different questions about different eras. And, I had 5 decades. I coached in 5 decades and had success in all 5. So tough to recall it all, but we try to capture as much as possible without hesitation.
I'm looking forward to reading about 1994. I'm sure you're stopped on the street on a daily basis, especially on Broadway, and asked about 94. Safe to say that was your proudest achievement?
It was certainly at the top of the list to go 80. The full schedule, end up win the President's Trophy and then win the Stanley Cup. I had some other great highlight years, and everyone, maybe you guys are too young to recognize it, but 87 Canada Cup against the Soviet Union was unbelievable experience. 91 Canada Cup, 93 in Munich World Championships. So we had a plethora of successes. University of Toronto, Peterborough Petes, Rochester Americans, KHL Russia, Magnitogorsk, China, Italy. So it's pretty comprehensive in terms of the miles that I covered.
And we've been talking about Austin Matthews getting the C here this year. You mentioned Mark Messier. You've talked about the decades that you've coached in. What do you look for in your experience in leaders, and what makes a really great leader on a hockey team?
Well, I think that I'll just give you some insights on Mark. And I had other great players. I had over 50 Hall of Famers. So, and many of them great leaders as well. But Mark was all inclusive. Everyone in that locker room felt important. He made sure that they did. He was the conduit between the team and myself. He demonstrated his skill set on the ice as well, backed it up. And he was demanding in terms of asking other players to step up. The idea that you have a responsibility, certainly to yourself and your family, but you also have a responsibility to the fellow next to you wearing the same jersey. Because if I don't do the best that I can do every night, then somebody else has got to do some work for me. And the best teams that win the cup are the guys that are totally unselfish. We had no distractions on that team whatsoever. Everyone accepted their role. Even when they weren't in the lineup, they were very positive around the team. And Mark, as the leader, made sure that everybody was included in every aspect of our team building, team concept, team play, systems, and they were comfortable with each other. We just had our 30th reunion about 2 weeks ago. You could still see that they really enjoy being with each other. It was incredible.
Talk about Austin Matthews scores his first of the season, coming off 69 last year. Obviously, you talked about your lengthy career in coaching. Anybody close in terms of goal scoring, in your opinion?
Well, obviously, Brett Hull. I mean, he is a pure goal scorer. I had many, we got Gretzky and Masson and Anderson and so on. Even Mike Gardner played for me, and he had 600 plus goals. But the purest probably goal scorer that we could compare Matthews with would be Brett Hull. It was incredible goal scorer, sniper, shot unbelievable. He could find the seam in the offensive zone. He could read the play and find that opening to get himself in a position to score. So I had some great goal scorers, obviously, and put up big numbers. Jeremy Roenick in Chicago and Steve Larmer, Michel Goulet. You had 50 Hall of Famers to talk about. It's hard to talk about them all, but Brett comes to mind right away.
As your career spanned over, different generations, you coach different types of people, and as things developed and they're raised differently, different generations, did you have trouble adjusting? Did you consciously adjust to the type of guys that were in your locker room as time went on in these generations? And, let's be honest, they're softer as time went on. Was that tough for you to adjust to, or?
Not really. I mean, if I hadn't adjusted, we wouldn't have won, but I was able to make some adjustments, and, you could ask me if I could have done it better. The principles I lived by throughout my career, but my methodology probably could have been improved. You have to self-examine your own style and be critical of your own development. But I did change enough to make contact or to relate to the different generations as we went on. In 1984, it was a different group, young group, the youngest team in pro sport, very receptive, coachable group. And then in 2014, I'm in a foreign country. I have to learn to speak enough Russian to give command, and we win a championship in Russia. So recently in Italy, and that's a different culture, a different mindset as well. So you have to definitely make some adjustments to your own methodology, style, and or your expectations of those different generations.
Mike, I thought it was only fitting we had you on today. I'm not sure if you caught this from the Leafs-Kings game, but Craig Berube called a timeout up 5-2 with 11 minutes left, and he blew up the bench. How many times did you blow up your bench in your career? And what'd you make of the Craig Berube hiring? Do you think he's a good fit here?
I saw that move, and I wasn't surprised. I coached Craig. The Leafs are in good hands with him. I'm hoping that they can learn over the course of the season from him and from his staff what it takes to win and be prepared for playoff hockey. I think that Paul Maurice is a friend and have been in the league for years. He reset the time clock a little bit and found a little bit of old school style of play to win the Stanley Cup. And it's a copycat league, and I think that other teams will follow suit. But he also had people like Taychuk who learned from his father, a different generation, and they inserted that into their program. But that didn't surprise me. The immediacy of the moment, he wanted to prevent a slide, or it's a soft landing. We got such a big lead. Here we go. We're just going to coast in, and it doesn't happen that way. You've got to play hard for 60 minutes, and he was delivering that message at that point, and it was a good timeout for the Maple Leafs. They responded and won the game in good style, but that's part of the teachable moments you go through. You learn from an experienced coach like Craig, and a guy that can demand that kind of respect because he played the game honestly, hard, and had a tough role. So hopefully they'll continue to respond to his leadership.
Yeah, speaking of those Leafs, I mean, their fan base are one of the more tormented in sports, very passionate, and just haven't been able to get over that hill for for decades now. What do you think it's going to take for a team in Toronto to get over that hump and win a Stanley Cup?
Well, I think it's a learning curve that they're going to have to put in place. You're going to have setbacks over the course of an 82 game schedule, but it's not what happens to you, it's how you react to what happens to you. How are you going to get better and be prepared to play playoff hockey? And also, there's a lot of noise, as there was in New York from the media, in Toronto particularly. You guys know that. They have to learn to deal with that. That's part of the responsibility of having that Maple Leaf jersey on. And that should be something that they embrace, that they enjoy, and they carry it with pride, because, you know, there's super big support system there for them, and a critical system when they don't do well. So they have to learn to manage that and manage it well. And I think with the guidance of their coach and their coaching staff, Brendan Shanahan, I played for me as well. And you know, the type of player he was hard-nosed, terrifically talented, and a goal scorer, but very hard-nosed. And the Maple Leafs have to learn that to get deeper into the playoffs than they've had recently, and to have the expectations, set the bar high right now. This is what we're going to do to improve and be ready for playoffs, to win the Stanley Cup, not just to play in the playoffs, but to win the Stanley Cup.
Can you pull back the curtain? You just mentioned Brendan Shanahan. Can you pull back the curtain on what he's like behind the scenes? Because I think that's one of the things in Leafs Nation we really don't hear from him very often.
No, and he's been a quiet leader in that regard. He's letting his staff step out in front, but he certainly influenced the dressing room when he was playing. He was a competitor. He's a fierce competitor, and with skill, talent, size, and toughness.
Full disclosure, I'm Italian. My parents are from the South. What was it like to coach the Italian men's national team? How much pasta did you eat?
It was a pleasure, actually. It was segmented, a different style of coaching when you're in charge of the national program. And I'd signed up to coach the team through the Olympics, and I had open heart surgery last April, and had to step back, but I'm an advisor. They surprised me a little bit in the fact I was up north in the Dolomites in Bolzano, where many players have gone through, but the number of hockey rinks in that particular region, it's the richest region in the entire country. And all the children, boys and girls, are playing hockey or skiing or doing both. And they have the facilities. They've invested the money into building in every small village community. There's a hockey rink. So that's speaks well for the future of hockey in Italy. And the players were very coachable. They were very receptive to coaching. They're passionate, not as skilled or at the level of an NHL team, but they improve and will continue to improve as their program expands.
Make sure to check out more of our content right here on the Leafs Nation YouTube page. We got long form interviews, we got clips, we got epic rants by Jay Rosehill. We simply have it all. And don't forget, you can find out much more at theleafsnation.com. Thanks so much for watching.